Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome back to a special episode of Nalo's Thrift Talk. If you're new here, I'm Lola.
And I'm Nay.
And this is Chris, my spouse, who is our special guest today. And our episode is all about gender neutral fashion. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to list things to appeal to buyers who might be outside the gender binary. And if that's a new concept to you, we're also going to talk about that. So this is an idea we had for our Pride Month programming, which did not quite go as well. But as one of my friends said the other day, time is meaningless now. So it is still Pride Month.
Yes. And plus, like Breast Cancer Awareness Month, you get all the attention in October, but people have breast cancer all year round. People are LGBT all year round, not just in June. So
yes. Very good point. And Nay, since forgot to do a little intro on our show, do you want to say something about what we do here and who we are?
So we love thrifting, and we do thrift to resell, but we also thrift for sustainability, for the environment, for, to reduce waste, textile waste, all of that. For our families, I have 3 boys that are growing, and I thrift pretty much 99% of their wardrobes. And I thrift for myself and for my home. And I know Lola is the same. Mm-hmm. And we also believe in, we love the sentimentality of it, the stories that you hear about, things that, maybe, like we had a Tanakh, a Jewish bound form of the Torah that we ended up getting back into the hands of the rightful owners, which was, that's a really good feeling. And that doesn't happen, if you go to Target and buy something, that kind of thing doesn't happen. So,
Yes, that's a great deal. We love things with stories. We love adding new stories to objects and giving them a second life. So
yes,
that's what our show is all about. And on that note, we have our usual segments. So Nadine, what are you wearing that's thrifted today?
So I am wearing this necklace. It is just a faux pearl costume jewelry, but it came in one of the Goodwill, the blue box jewelry box that I got a while back. And I took this out today, and I decided to wear a couple pieces from that. And then this bracelet as well, which is, it kind of has Indian vibes, it's kind of
so pretty.
Yeah, I love it. It's missing a couple rhinestones, but no biggie, because I'm keeping it for myself. And then I am wearing this oversized, it's like a tunic top. It's kind of sheer. I have a tank top under it, but the nice thing about it is that it's really, really cool. So if I don't want to just go out in a tank top, but I want to, still be in something light, I have this, and it's really, I think it could be a pool cover up too. It could be a dress. It could be a tuna top, kind of versatile. So, and it's just like the brand is City Chic, which is just one of those like kind of one-off, no name brands, but it's just one of those things that I like. And I think I paid like $2.99 at Goodwill at some point for it. So,
and you bought it for yourself. You weren't planning.
Yeah.
It's always nice to find those, like when it's a no-name brand, it doesn't matter if it's just for you.
And I do a lot of that, for myself. I don't care if it's Target or what it is, as long as I like it and it fits. So
yeah, but I could see also listing that just for style, like on Poshmark.
I think it would go as also as like a pool cover up kind of thing too. Yeah, it's very versatile. I like it. So
it's super cute. Chris, what are you wearing?
I don't know, Lola. What am I wearing? Lola thrifts for me.
So we have a running joke about how I buy a lot of Chris rejects. So I'll find something I think they might like at the thrift store. And then if it doesn't work out, I end up listing it. So both of our shirts are in that category.
This one's growing on me.
Oh, well, if you like it, you can keep it.
Thank you.
So these are both, I think, from the 70s. Chris's is Levi's, and it has the fun like vintage logo, which is the same, like the horses pulling apart the pair of jeans. But it has, you can tell it's a little bit older. I tried to date the exact label. I couldn't find anything on it, but it is made in Hong Kong, and it's a cotton poly blend. So it was pretty easy to date. I think it's like late 70s, especially given you agree with that, Nay? Like the print is.
I would think so. Yeah, it's super cute. Yeah, I love it. And that's a good example of gender neutral fashion too. So
exactly why we're wearing these.
Yeah, I was thinking I could wear something but I was more interested in just staying cool today. So.
Yeah. fair enough.
Yeah, because everything I had was like long sleeved or.
And then, so my shirt is, I think, about the same time period. It's, I believe, a cotton linen blend. Actually, it's a little bit nicer fabric, and it's from JCPenney's, and it had like the some of the original tags on it when I first got it. It's in, like the men's store, but I've actually worn this a few times. It fits me fair. Like it doesn't button all the way down the front because I have a larger chest, which is one thing we'll talk about. But it, it's cute.
It cute with the tank top or whatever you have underneath. Yeah, awesome.
And like you said, like nice and breezy for the summer. This is also growing on me. It may go back to my closet.
I like it. I really like it. It's cute.
But I do like it. Thank you.
Also, another example of gender neutral fashion. Yes.
And Heather says, "Hi, Chris."
Hi, Heather. We're gonna have you on as a regular now, I think. Yeah, we'll get Chris back on again.
Especially because Chris will be helping me over the summer
to follow my apprenticeship.
Yes.
So we're gonna be talking about that.
See what I'm learning.
And I should say that I love Chris too. We are Lola and Chris are both very good friends of mine. And
yes, we miss you.
So nice. Yes, I miss both of you, and it's so nice to see Chris's face right now too.
Definitely looking forward to the day we can come down to Philly again.
Can't wait
soon. So hopefully people will cooperate and wear their masks. It'll be safe for us to travel.
You have Duncan. Okay.
I almost said that we should get Duncan this morning. Maybe we'll have to get it after the show.
I had to get the huge one too because I knew it was
So Nate, thrifted home decor.
So I have, and I borrowed this from my son again. So I found this in the bins. I was with you, Lola, when I found it, and it was a miracle that it was not broken.
Yeah.
It was a Disney snow globe, and it's musical, and it's super cute. It actually does have a little chip on the bottom of the foot, but you can't see it. So I was going to sell it, and if I listed it, I probably would have gotten about $40 for it. Maybe a little less, but I would have listed it for that.
It's great from the bins. That's a great
but it plays perfectly. But I had it in my listing pile. I was going to take a picture of it, and my son, who has some sensory issues, saw it, and he fell in love with it. And the music is very soothing to him. So every night, it's on his nightstand. Every night, he asks me to play the music box before he goes to sleep.
That's so sweet.
So I think it's kind of like one of those things where, certain sounds and textures and all comfort him, and this is one of the sounds that's kind of, so it is now a permanent fixture in his room. But it was a great find for the bins.
Hi everyone in the chat. Just seeing a bunch of people popping in. I'm so glad you guys can make it, especially because we are a little off our regular time today. So thanks for being here.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I had a schedule conflict this morning, so
it seems just like never ending. Like we never leave, or at least we never leave the house, and yet somehow things keep coming up, and it's just like a weird time. And
well, my mom is having heart surgery on Monday. It's not open heart surgery. It's she's having a stent put in because there's a blockage, at least one that we know of. So this morning I had to take her for her pre-op testing. So
and everything went well. So she
so she did have to have a COVID test. We assume that she doesn't have that, but yeah, everything's fine, and she's set to go. I have to be at the hospital with her. I have to take her to the hospital. I'm the one person that can go. 5 a.m. we have to be there.
Oh,
yes. Oh, I'll be waking up at like 30 on Sunday night, but yeah, hopefully everything will go well. So please send good vibes and thoughts for my mom.
Absolutely. So I think I may have shown this before. This is a painting that used to be in our bedroom when we lived in Philly. And
oh yes, I've seen that. Was the one that was over in the bedroom, and Chris said that it was too depressing. Was that it?
It got a little gloomy.
It is a little gloomy.
And I like gloomy. I don't mind it, but it was the first thing I saw when I woke up.
Yeah.
So.
It was the right size for it because it was like just the right width for over our radiator. Mm-hmm. But it was a little depressing. So
I can see how you wake up. That like it sets the mood for the day. It's like, oh, I feel good today. I look at that and it's like,
but I think it's perfect for my room, which is the room we're in now, is like my craft room / office. And Chris has been helping me move some furniture around. We put Mookie's favorite chair in here. So now when I'm on the computer, he sits in the chair and is quiet for the most part. So I think this will go over the chair.
Nice.
And I'm just excited to have picked the right place for it.
Is it oil on canvas?
It is oil, but it is.
Is it canvas board?
It's very DIY.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yes.
When I bought it, the guy at the thrift store said that it was a painting by a Russian woman who had passed away, and so her kids had brought in a bunch of her artwork because she was like a hobbyist painter. But like her work was incredible. Like this was my favorite. I wish I had just bought the rest of them because there were like 3 or 4 paintings that were all just really, really lovely. So,
and thus what we talk about why we thrift,
Yeah. And so I was, able to enjoy it. And I don't know her name. I've never met her. Probably never meet her family, but I get to enjoy her painting every day.
Very cool. Okay, so we are going to dive into our main segment. So Chris is going to be in the spotlight now.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of questions for Chris. And if you have any in the chat, if there's anything you want to ask, you can feel free, and we'll try to bring them up. And so Chris, I hope you don't feel too like hot seat, but I think it'll be fun to do sort of a more interview format show,
and I am just one person.
Yeah.
So this isn't definitive answers for all gender variant people.
Right. But it's the best perspective, that we have to, an insight into, a nice little education about it. Because I think people should be more aware of, and inclusive. So, okay. So do you want me to start with the questions, or do you want to start?
Yeah. Why don't you go for it?
Okay. So the first question is, so what are your pronouns, and what does it mean to you to go by them and they, them pronouns? So,
so my pronouns are they, them. I grew up going by she, her, and have been going by they, them for a few years now.
Yeah.
First, I usually like to point out that I'm a singular person who goes by they. They you use in English as a singular pronoun all the time, right? So if you're waiting for an Uber, you might say like, oh, how close are they?
Right.
You don't know the gender of the person you're referring to who's your Uber driver. So we say it all the time because we don't know. And the truth is we never really know someone's identity until they share it with us. So they being a singular term was not a big hang up for me. I think what pronouns mean to me is because I don't use them to refer to myself.
Right.
Like when I am talking about myself, I say me, I. It's more, are the people around me referring to who I really am?
Trapped a cat in a room.
Sure. So when I ask people, like, can you use they, are they willing to support me and to recognize who I am?
Acknowledge you.
Because they're the ones who are going to be using it.
Yeah, it's like an acknowledgement of who you are. Yeah.
Right.
So I can understand that. And it did give when Lola first told me, a few years ago, of course, I'm very open-minded and I like to learn and I like to, but it took me a while, I still can sometimes, but it took me a while now it's like totally, second nature. But for the most part, sometimes I do still slip up and I'll say like your wife, Lola's wife, or I'll say she, but for the most part, I understand. But there are a lot of people that don't even know that, gender neutral people like to refer to themselves, as in with different pronouns with they and them or so.
I was wondering for you all, what are your pronouns and what does it mean to you to go by your pronoun?
Good question. Nate, do you want to answer that?
Yes. So I do identify as she and her because I, on the inside and, I was not because I was born a female, because you can be born one gender and be a different identity inside, So, but on the inside, I've always been a girl and very girly, and that's just what I am. I've never felt, anything different. So that it's appropriate for me, but for someone else, it might not be appropriate. So
I feel this, so I guess I would say the same thing. I definitely, it's in college. We have a lot of friends from college who are trans, which different, like some people who are non-binary or who were trans men. And so it was something that I thought about because I just like knew people who were kind of exploring their gender and figuring that out for themselves. And so I was like, well, maybe like, I don't, and it just, so I definitely spent time thinking about it, but realize that like I do feel
you're girly girl.
Yeah, I'm a very girly
girl.
And not that you have to be a girly girl to like, like makeup or any of that, but it definitely for me, like you said, it sort of all fits together with how I was raised and the gender I was assigned at birth. So that's I guess.
Yes. And so when and how is it appropriate to ask someone their pronouns, Chris?
I mean, the altruistic answer is always, but some ways that I think I've seen it done really well. If you're in a public gathering and there are name tags, like having people included on name tags, if you have some control over that. We were at a game night at a friend's house, and it got to the point where it's like, let's all introduce ourselves. And our friend who was hosting said, let's also say our pronouns so we know how to refer to each other.
Wow.
That was really
that is kind of cool.
And like well done. And also I was the only person there who had pronouns who didn't match maybe what you would guess. So also making it like a group activity instead of just, oh, Chris uses them. Also kind of made it not me in the spotlight. And then if it's an individual, I mean, I wouldn't ask right away because then you might be just pointing out like, oh, you look different.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to offend.
But hi, yes. Normally, if I'm meeting someone and it gets to the point where I am about to use their pronoun or about to refer to them, to someone else, hi, baby. This is yes. Then I usually say, do you mind me asking what your pronoun is?
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And then the final part of that question is, what is the difference between your gender identity and gender presentation, between gender and sexuality?
Okay.
Oh, and sorry, because Heather actually had a great
I was going to say that
question in the chat, which is what does gender neutral mean? So, because those are all related.
Yeah, and that's why we're kind of going into this before we get into the fashion part, because we want people to understand what, we want people to understand what it is that you're supporting, what it's all about, because people need to be educated. They don't know, and it's not that they're ignorant or they just don't know, and it's good to be aware. So,
yeah. So I am using some working definitions. Again, I'm not like a professional
the number one authority
in this area, but pretty widely accepted definitions. I think sexual orientation is pretty well known by now. Hi, baby.
Cats are really confused that we're both here at the same time.
So sexual orientation is that kind of inherent attraction to other people, either like emotionally, socially, sexually, kind of who you are attracted to, being attracted to other people or no people at all. That one's, I think, is a little more mainstream now. Gender identity is kind of coming into the mainstream.
Yeah.
So that is your innermost concept of yourself. Like in terms of who you are, do you conceive of yourself as male, female, both, neither? And that, as Lola kind of alluded to, can either match with the biological sex that you were assigned at birth or not. So like for Lola, like had kind of typical biological parts that go along with being assigned woman. Also identifies as a woman. That is what we call cisgender.
Right.
I have lady parts as well. But I don't identify as a woman. I identify as, I guess, gender fluid is kind of how it feels. I feel, I I have these aspects of male and female.
Yeah,
and
that's the way Lola had explained it to me.
I can't separate them.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's like a fit, like this half of me is male, is half me is female. You know, like
no, it's more like you have some aspects that are more female, some are male, and you're just kind of a person.
Yeah,
a human being. Yes.
Yeah. And then gender expression, which I think also people are probably familiar with, whether or not we consciously express our gender or not. But that is kind of the elements of what we put on the outside to express who we are. So it could be like clothing, makeup, hairstyle, voice, mannerisms. Those may or may not reflect your gender. So for a period of time, I was wearing dresses and like trying to be very feminine, like,
but it didn't feel right.
My gender expression,
but inside it didn't feel right.
Yeah, that was someone else's.
Okay.
And then there are obviously kind of more socially acceptable expressions. So if you're a woman and you identify as a woman, like there's like women's clothing, you know, and that kind of going with what is prescribed of like what women wear, or what men wear. Yeah, so your gender expression may or may not conform to societal expectations, but it's typically associated with a more masculine presentation, a more feminine presentation, or somewhere in between, right?
Yeah. And there is a difference too. I just want to point out this really quick. There is a difference between non-binary or gender fluid than, you know, transgender. Transgender means that you were born, you know, assigned one sex at birth, but inside, you know, you're not that. You're you know, you're a different. You're the opposite gender. That's what you are, and so that's what gender neutral. I mean, transgender is. Sorry.
Well, but you consider yourself trans, right? So trans is more like the umbrella.
Yeah. So I'm not a trans.
I don't know.
Trans man, right? Like, yeah, because I'm not.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So okay.
But usually when people say trans, as in like transgender, they are referring to someone who was maybe born female and became a man, because that's not right. But we're assigned female at birth, and then now their true gender identity is male.
That's what I think of it as, but the lines are blurred a little. You're saying,
yeah. And so that's why I think you've been trying to, you know, say this is just your experience, because everyone does have
got it. Okay.
Experience.
Yeah. So even as I give these it might sound like, oh my gosh, there's so many options, this is so overwhelming. But I like to think of it as like there's such a fullness to the human experience, and instead of like, oh, this is too much, and reverting back to it's easier when people are one thing or the other thing, that actually no, there's like a beauty in diverse experiences. And like, how amazing is it that human beings can conceive of themselves in so many different ways? That's actually a good thing.
That's
a very profound and beautiful way to put it. Wow.
Yeah. So Heather, on the gender neutral thing, I don't know a lot about fashion. I think of it as having concepts of more than one gender is gender neutral. But
yeah. So I think as we're talking about it for our show, it's sort of a term for clothing that might appeal to buyers who are of different gender identities. So, you know, when you're listing something on eBay or Poshmark, there's like male clothing and female clothing, but there's a lot of buyers who like, they might be maybe a more butch woman and they identify as a woman, but they want to be looking at male clothing because that's how they enjoy to dress. So, you know, there's a lot of sort of more nuance that you don't get when there's these like very specific categories.
Yep.
Online. So part of what we wanted to talk about today is how do we kind of get around that? How do we reach buyers who might be looking for clothing that isn't easy to find through the usual search terms, things like that you might be used to using, or keywords you're used to using. So yeah. So Chris, how you touched on this a little bit, but how do you think your style has changed since you came out as non-binary?
I'm working on it. So I definitely feel much more comfortable in my own skin wearing men or more masculine clothing.
No dresses.
No, it's just
No,
not me.
I can't
I'm
picture
not
that
saying
now.
like anyone can wear a dress. Men wear all the dresses you want. It just is not. It's not me. It doesn't feel like me. I definitely, and I think this is true of a lot of trans people, we go through this period of like a second puberty where we're trying to figure out what to wear. And so we wear clothing that is way too young for us, which I did. And thankfully, like a few times Lola was like, don't wear that. Don't buy that. That is like, that's teenager clothing, but you're kind of being a teenager again. So it's hard to
Jason will rock a dress.
He will, and he does it well. Yes.
you and Jason.
Jason also has purple glittery toenails. So
So it's hard not going through those stages of like, what am I supposed to wear at this age? So I think I finally caught up to my own age. My style, I like the idea of like a capsule wardrobe, so like everything kind of fitting together.
Bless you.
thank you.
So I would say I don't have a lot of like pieces that don't match everything else. And I really enjoy thrifting because I like the sustainability of it. And I like the freedom to make sure clothing fits before I buy it, because fit is a big issue.
Yeah. Good answer.
So when you're shopping at a thrift store, on that note, how does it feel for you to maybe like go into the men's section? Like, do you feel comfortable shopping in all parts of the store, or does it depend on where you are, what store you're in?
It is tricky thrifting as a more variant person, I think, or just shopping in general. Clothing can be very gendered, and I personally, I would never anywhere. Actually, I wouldn't go to a thrift store by myself. Just sometimes people can be a little aggressive. And
I hope you're not like we're people like us are aggressive, which we can
no,
be.
no,
Okay.
not
Oh my.
no,
Gender aggressive.
No, gender aggressive, not your thrifting thing. No, that's just funny to me. But no, like there have definitely been times when I've been in the men's section and like you just get that energy of like people don't want you here and like kind of glaring at you or making comments under their breath, and or all out just like dyke or something,
Oh, that's horrible.
So I personally would never go without Lola or without a cis person.
That's sad. That's really sad. That really breaks my heart.
And it's, gender is funny because when I had long hair and was dressing a little more feminine, I could go in the men's section because I think people just thought I was shopping for a boyfriend or a brother. But now that I look like this and I'm in the men's section, I think they can figure out I'm shopping for myself. And so it can get a little uncomfortable. And then like I'm from Kentucky, and there are parts of my state like I would just never go to those thrift shops. Even with Lola, I think it would just be too risky.
That's sad. Yeah, but that is the reality, and that's why we're bringing awareness to this.
Mm-hmm. So, oh, that's so sweet, Heather. She says, my friend took her trans friend shopping. She had no idea how to dress as a woman. I mean, I think it's an interesting part of that experience because it's like you have all of these new things to explore, but also you're like, but usually you learn that from like a mom or an older sister, or you're learning with your friends in middle school when you're allowed to make really dumb fashion choices. Like, Nay, I know you and I have talked about like all of the crazy creative clothing that we both wore in high school, even though we didn't know each other back then. Like those are times when that's like a little bit more socially acceptable.
Exactly.
So, it is a learning curve. But so on that note, actually talking about being with other people in the thrift store, if we are, as thrifters, we are super comfortable. We don't really give a crap what people think of like where we're shopping in the store. Yeah. And if so, say we see someone who looks like they made me feel a little uncomfortable in the section they're shopping in, like, what would you want someone to do to show that like they support you and that they're there to, to side with you against a bully if someone's being rude to you or something?
Yeah, I think if we make eye contact, like smile. Smiling does a lot. Also just kind of lets me know you're not like staring at me.
Right.
And I think also a good rule of thumb is the like, was it I'll go with you or something? If you see, I've seen like similar practices for people who wear hijabs. So like if you see someone being bullied or pressured because of how they look, just kind of intervening as if you were a friend or something and helping them get out of if you're comfortable, helping them get out of the situation.
So like pretend like you know them already, and so they can be like,
I've
oh, I
seen that
haven't
work.
seen you in so long. How are you? And then kind of just like diffuse the situation like that.
Yeah. Definitely. If you see someone being bullied like that, for, who they are, you should definitely step in. And that's the right thing to do.
So I know you don't do a ton of shopping online because you usually let me do that for you.
Correct.
But so if you were
like Chris's personal shopper.
I love it. It's so much fun.
That's what you should do.
But so if you're shopping for yourself, what would be some things that you would look for, like maybe on eBay, that search terms you would use, or how would you find clothes that like feel right for you on somewhere like eBay?
Yeah, I probably would search for androgynous or gender neutral, or search for men's clothing if they have a range of sizes, because then I could get a small, or boys clothing if they have a range of sizes, then I could get a large.
Okay.
But yeah, I think kind of your basic like.
What about the term unisex? Is that?
Oh. Maybe I could now. I've never used it before, but.
Because I saw that in a lot of the search, a lot of when I was doing some research last night, I saw a lot of it says unisex.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like t-shirts come in, but it's really I feel like unisex is just like men's sizes.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, we don't want to call them men's.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would notice on maybe like a seller's profile or in the information in the listing that would make you feel more comfortable buying from one buyer versus another?
If I knew it was minority owned in some way, so like if it was a business run by a person of color, who was a queer person, especially if it was a trans person, that would get my attention. If you specifically used terms like this, this piece can be gender neutral, or that would catch my eye. And then also just pieces that look like they can be altered. Or if you said, I don't know if you can offer that, like this is easily alterable. Because usually something's not, unless it's like a custom, something's not going to fit somewhere.
Yeah, I thought that was actually a brilliant idea. We were talking about this before we went live today, but on platforms like if you're selling on Etsy or Depop, if you're a seamstress or have sewing ability, like I could probably do this to say, this is the size, but give me, an extra $20 and a couple weeks, and I could alter this to fit you specifically if you have, wider hips or something like that.
And that's a great.
If it was a seller I liked, I'd rather give you the money than,
Yeah, great idea. So if you're selling those items, those type of items, the best thing to do would be to let people know that you are supportive of, of gender fluid people, of, just mention, use the right keywords and, in your description. Right.
Yes. It sounds like as if you're using the right keywords, it's also like a good signal that you're supportive of non-binary, gender fluid people buying your clothing, and that you're not thinking, oh, this is a men's shirt that I'm only going to sell to a man.
Right.
So there's like subtle ways that you can kind of like show your support. Is that? Yeah. Are there any measurements or like kind of details about a piece of clothing that you'd want to see on a listing that would make you feel more comfortable buying it, just in terms of like fit?
Just in terms of if it was a buyer I wanted to go back to frequently, I'm usually curious if they have different sizes. I think some androgynous clothing, it like boils down to like a really thin person that has no shape, and it's like, that's not that's very few people and can be really limiting to other genderqueer people in terms of like what clothing they could wear. And especially if you're curvy at all, like fashion is already kind of a tough zone to navigate. So to then like withhold more clothing that reflects who you are because you can't make it for all bodies, I feel like it's just an added frustration. So yeah, I do look for I do look for if there's a range of sizes, just in terms of like the ethics of it. I don't always shop online because sizing is difficult.
So measurements are key, correct? That's measurements. And measurements are very important.
Yeah. And also one thing I do love about my new shopping life is men's sizing. Wow.
Way more intuitive than women's sizing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like the number of your waist is the same everywhere, instead of when you're like, oh, I wear X size pants and women's pants, and you're looking at this and there's like, there's no way y'all are all the same size. So like, no, I have 4 different pairs of pants here. They all say they're the same size, but they're clearly not. So when it's listed in men's sizing, it's perfect because I actually know what I'm getting.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess it would vary less than women's sizing would. Yeah. Because an 8 in one brand could be, the equivalent of like a 12 in another brand, or
which is definitely a frustration that we have as resellers, because I mean, as people who wear those sizes of clothing, but also like when we're listing something, you always have buyers who are like, well, I'm always a size 8, but this was too small for me.
Yes, always.
Like, that's because women's clothing, like sizes just don't matter. Like they don't mean anything.
Yeah, you have to give measurements though. And Lola, you had mentioned, I know in the notes, about a chest versus bust measurement. If you're selling something that's more gender neutral, don't use women's or men, use more gender neutral measurement terms as well. Because, chest is more, gender than bust. Bust is referring to women's clothing.
Yeah. So I was actually thinking that I might start just saying chest measurement across the board, because that also just makes it easier. Like if I'm copying and pasting my measurement, like categories and into my listing, then I don't have to have one that says bust and one that says chest. I can just use one standard. And then that way it's really clear about what I'm talking about. And this is also, John, actually in the chat, brings up something that I was thinking as well, which is that I may also I do have a female mannequin. And then for men's clothing, I usually just take photos against a flat wall, like on a hanger, but to do maybe both options for more of my clothing. So if a woman wanted to buy a men's shirt and see what it might look like on a woman's body, you have the mannequin, but then you still have the, flat without the bust.
I actually turned my mannequin around.
It's a really good.
Her back is the front to take pictures of men's clothing. So that's another option.
Yeah. So just like having more photos for more people to see imagine what it might look like on their bodies.
And if you are selling on Depop, you can do a video. They only allow 4 photos, but Poshmark now has 16 photos. So you can easily do that on Poshmark. eBay still has 12, but still that's
still usually enough for a piece of
clothing. That you could do that for some of those more androgynous type clothing items. Yes. Good point.
So we have a running joke, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, about Chris rejects.
Yeah, Lola and I are always joking about that. We're like, because Lola will find something, or I'll find, sometimes I find stuff too, and I'm like, you think Chris would like this? And
the Chris reject.
Yeah, and then I can never wait for Lola to get home after we've thrifted to say, so was it a Chris reject? And she'll usually be like, oh, another reject, but but every once in a while I'll be like, it was a winner. Yeah.
What do you think makes something feel like right for you? Like what is not a Chris reject?
Okay. I mean, the perfect shirt would be it's small enough in the bust, but like wide enough in the hips. That doesn't always happen. But if that were to like the boys department at Marshall's, I like cleaned out because all of a sudden I was just finding all of these shirts that like magically fit. So that would obviously win. If it looked alterable, you know, some of it you're just like, this is going to take so much work to make this fit. But then also Lola has been encouraging me to, well, this doesn't reflect it, but wear more color and like try to step out of my comfort zone a little bit. So maybe we'll see fewer Chris rejects, maybe not. It's hard to say. And then also, something else I have noticed switching from women's clothing to more men's clothing is like, does it have pockets? I don't understand the like people who wear women's clothing wouldn't want pockets in their clothing.
You know what? That's a good point.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, do you have stuff like, you know, so yeah, if it doesn't have pockets, I'm just like, I can't with it.
So that's another important thing to mention. Pockets.
And I do try to
get that every once in a while.
Carry a purse. Like
I'll forget to mention it, and I will get that question. Does it have pockets? You know, so
yeah, dresses and
I don't know why they think people who wear women's clothing don't want their pockets.
I feel like that's maybe starting to change, but there definitely is like a whole history behind that, where because it's assumed that women carry purses, that you don't dresses.
Yeah. So that wouldn't work for me.
Now, would you carry like a messenger bag or something like that?
Yeah,
like
if I have enough stuff,
a tote bag or something like
or,
that.
Yeah, just not like a frilly women's purse, but but kind of like a gender neutral bag or backpack is something that you would look for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So Heather brings up the point that eBay does like ask you for a category that's always going to boil down to like male or female. Poshmark does that too.
Yeah, I wish they would have a third, a non-binary category or a unisex or gender neutral. They do have unisex in some categories, like in some of the sports and stuff like that. But as a whole, there's no kind of androgynous, ambiguous category, which that would be a nice thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know there's some.
Can you select both?
You can select a secondary category, but I think, do you still have to pay an extra fee? I know you used to.
Oh, you mean when you're listing?
Yeah.
To do that in a secondary, you have to pay it. Yeah, you do.
I know on Depop, there's some sellers who are pushing them to have a more inclusive like taxonomy. So either no male, female, or having like a gender neutral category. And I could see Depop doing that much more quickly than eBay. So hopefully that will happen. And then that will make it, that will give them an edge, because then they'll attract some customers that will have an easier time shopping there than other places.
So in eBay, in your store, not Poshmark doesn't have this, but in eBay, in your store, you can do store categories. So maybe, and the light bulb just went on with me, maybe it would be great to have another category that's for gender neutral or non-binary clothing or something, a whole category for that in your store. And
I would still, like, if it's like, this is a men's shirt, I would still list this as a men's shirt. It's not an androgynous shirt because it has a men's fit.
Yeah.
But I know that when I buy it.
To help that audience, like to help them to more easily, you can have two categories in your store. So maybe I would put it in men's and maybe I would put it in gender neutral too. Yeah. To kind of, help along that audience of buyers, so that they can go to one category in your store and see what's available then. That's either or.
And browse. Yeah. And then and like Christy, you were saying earlier, that it's a good sign that this is a supportive seller who
that too. Yes.
Trying to appeal to customers who are looking for those kind of gender neutral.
And I would want to give you my money.
We'll take your money. I mean, it's our money, so it doesn't matter. So one last question is, I know that you've used Pinterest to like try and figure out kind of what feels right for you, like what styles you like. And so when you're using Pinterest, do you often find pieces that are for sale on like say eBay or Poshmark? And would that help you find, is that a good way to maybe promote clothing that might help break out of the categories that eBay and Poshmark sort of impose? That was
good question.
Yeah. Pinterest has probably been the easiest search engine for like androgynous clothing specifically. I see a lot of accounts on there that are specifically like androgynous. I personally like have a more masculine, like just kind of traditional male clothing, like works for me. So one thing I do like about Pinterest is like what is event appropriate, like for clothes, you know, because I just don't know. I didn't grow up like looking for those cues from other people who wore men's clothing. So that's why I use Pinterest.
Or Lola. Lola has a really good
like what do you wear to like
like suits, like men's suits. I don't know what's like a wedding suit versus like a like interview suit. That's definitely not something that,
and
what's Instagram too? A lot of people do buy on Instagram too. So I'm wondering if Instagram is another good resource.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how Pinterest like uses its algorithm, but a lot of the like accounts I see, it links to like a store, not eBay or what, you know, not secondhand, which I would rather buy anyway. But
this is a good one.
Now that eBay has more item specifics.
You can add your own item specifics. So maybe that's a good spot to use that in to add. Yeah. Yep. Good idea, Heather. And I guess we are going to show some of the bolos, like the newer brands that, so there's a trend right now of gender neutral clothing, you know, even for cis people, for, you know, there's a lot of women that wear, you know, that don't consider themselves gender neutral or trans or anything, and they'll wear more masculine, vice versa.
So totally
I see men in pink and floral shirts, and you know, cis men that are not, you know, it's I think that the lines are blurring more for everyone now, but specifically there are, which is a good thing, because now there are so many brands out there, and I was so impressed when I did some research. There's so many great brands out there that not only, you know, some of them are owned by gender neutral or trans people or LGBTQ people, and so they cater to that audience. But there's also a lot of brands that are kind of like that login look, or they're just kind of, you know, they're very neutral and gender fluid. So these are some of the brands that and these are
a great example of, these are all like eco-friendly too.
Yeah, these are sustainable brands. These are,
but if you look at almost all of the pieces on this list are very expensive, which makes sense because they're
so cute.
You could totally pull that off. They're, you know, they're more niche brands.
I follow them.
Yeah. They have like a
can you click on the Radimo? Maybe you want to go through the whole list, but you could click on a couple of those websites.
Oh, I think I have that. They have those.
The Radimo is one of them that I wanted to show, because that's owned by a I don't know if it's trans people or trans person, but it is, you know, LGBTQ owned, and I love their website. It was just
it's so like,
it's so everything
inspiring.
They have, you know, traditional, you know, masculine looking people wearing feminine clothing and vice versa. And there's gender neutral people. And I also love that they cater to all body types too.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Because that is something that, you know, Chris, you mentioned, but also we were looking at some of these brands. They do, it is that like sort of androgynous, like high fashion look where it's very like boyish, slim figures, and not really like, that's a very small portion of the population.
Yeah, people have curves, you know, and they want to have gender neutral fashion too. So this is one of those brands that really cater to, and I love the shirt on the left. It says they. Yeah. But this is one of those companies that is owned by I'm not sure if I read about it, but I don't know if they're trans but they are LGBTQ. And I just love how, you know, they have skirts with masculine, and then there's a man wearing traditionally, or a traditionally masculine person wearing feminine, you know, like it's kind of like the line.
Strange. I think the initial impression of like androgyny and gender neutral clothing was like genderless, like alien, head shaped, no identifying features, no color, no, you know, and I was just like, I bet it might work for some people pull that off really well. I don't think that's everyone's goal.
Yeah.
Is to like to be completely absent of like any gender marker.
Yeah, and you want style too. That's the other thing. You know, a lot of the clothing was lacking style, but these brands really have style, which is so cool. They bring, you know, they've got color and they've got, you know, interesting cuts, and I love how on this website too, you'll see like, you know, people that are gender fluid wearing, you know, a little bit of lace and then something very masculine, you know, together. It's like anything goes. So
yeah. And when there aren't rules like that, you can be that much more creative with how you dress. And like you said before, that was really beautiful. It's just like the boundlessness of human expression.
Yeah, it's great that you don't have to be in one box or one category. You can be, you know, who said that you have to be in a box? You don't have to.
I would say that like not every gender neutral experience is the same. I have found a lot of like, it just feels easier to me to move more masculine than someone who was assigned male at birth to move more feminine. Just like it's because of sexism. I get like it's so much harder. And so yeah, that would be my plug, especially like if you're in a thrift store, like to be like especially. I mean, don't be weird, but like to be like especially gentle and kind.
So.
Yeah. Someone who seems male is brave enough to go to the female side of the store. It's just so much harder.
Yeah, there was a trans woman that I forget, I might be misquoting what she was, but she was a pageant competitor, and she was telling me, I got into a chat with her because we were looking through the dress section, and she was telling me how she had won. I don't remember, it was Miss LGBTQ Philadelphia or it was some title like that she had won, and she was looking for a dress to compete in her next pageant. And while I was flipping through, she was very tall. And as I was flipping through, I happened to find a section of women's tall dresses. They actually said tall on them. Somebody had donated. So I was like, hey, you know, you might want to, these, you know, there's some tall sizes here. You might want to check. And she was really grateful. She was like, oh, that's awesome. And she was, you know, showed, and then she was asking me, she's like, what do you think about this one? You know, so it was just like, you know, I was just conversing with any other shopper about, you know, advice of clothing. And, you know, it was just another woman in the dress section. That's, you know, it was, and, but it was such a fun, you know, conversation, you know, helping, because I kind of helped her shop a little bit. And so that's
maybe you helped her find her next pageant dress, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but she was also saying how she has trouble because she was tall, as she has trouble, you know, finding the perfect cut and the perfect fit, and how often she did have to, you know, alter clothing, and it was hard to find things, you know, just off the rack that fit correctly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as we're talking about the, you know, amazing brands that are now focusing more on like gender fluid fashion, some of them are very expensive. So for us, that means that they can be great bolos. They do have good resale value. And then we can also help provide accessibility, because there's some people who, you know, much rather buy secondhand for sustainability reasons, but also just for budgetary reasons, that, you know, buying it used can help. So Nay found some great
yeah, so these are all brands that you can look for, and a lot of these were in the list that I found a couple articles, and we can pop those links in the after, you know, on our video after, we'll pop them in so that you guys can look and you know, and go through some of the websites yourselves and see some of the brands that but Big Bud Press was one of them, and I think that was also one of the ones that catered to, they talked about how they catered to all different size you know, different
we definitely have
much body inclusive,
more curvier kind of sizes.
Exactly. So there's an example of that. That's a unisex strawberry field short sleeve, and you can see now this one was new with tags, but it also sold for $117.50. So again, they're not cheap. So if you can find something like that, and that's still going to be less than what you would pay on the sticker price, so you can bring, if you know, if people are looking for things in those brands, you can bring that to them by finding it secondhand and offering them a better price than it would be in, you know, in the store. And you can still make a really great profit, because maybe, maybe they found that in a thrift store and paid $5 and they sold it for $117, but the person that was looking for it didn't want to pay the $200 sticker price that was actually on the website. So
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then Doc Martens, always super popular.
Did you find a non-Chris reject there?
That was not rejected.
I have bought a few pairs on Shop Goodwill, hoping that they would fit one of us, and they fit neither of us. So
selling. That's the good thing about being a reseller, though. You can sell rejects.
And especially, I think most resellers know this, but the older made in England ones have a really big following. I remember we were in New Hope. And remember that store we went to that had just a wall of, they were all made
really obnoxious. You had like really obnoxious signs about
this. But I was like, I could do this. I could sell all of these made in England Doc Martens.
Oh yeah. You remember that, Chris?
You was there. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
She was so rude. Oh my gosh.
She owned every Doc Marten in the world.
But great example of a shoe that they do have both men's and women's sizes on every label. So
yep, that's a great thing. Like I would wear those, and Chris would probably wear those. So that's that's like an example of something that is definitely not gender neutral. Yeah. So look for the docs.
And then Tom of Finland was someone we mentioned on our LGBT episode.
But this brand was on the list. This Eckhouse Lata brand. They specialize in gender fluid clothing, and this was just one of the examples that you can that showed like, hey, we're LGBTQ friendly, obviously, but this brand, they can run very expensive. So
it's interesting that both of those pieces of clothing are auctions. Every now and then you come across like a niche where auctions really do help. So this could be one.
Yeah. And there's another example. These are some of the Eckhouse Lata pants. You can see that they go for a lot too. And there's a lot of bolos in that brand. So if you look at that brand and then sort on the soles from high to low, you can see, some examples.
Chris just asked what bolo means.
Oh,
this is your first introduction to your reselling education.
Be on
bolo mean.
Be on the lookout for.
So if you're in a thrift store, you want to be on the lookout for these. And then Please was actually one of the brands that we talked about with Stacy when she was on. We were talking about high-end fashion.
Yes, that's right.
Very high-end, but a great example of a brand that is, because it's so flowy, that it can fit more bodies more easily. So definitely appeals to different gender representations. And then this was another one of the brands on that list, I think, right?
Yeah, Karen Finch. I think it is also owned. It's also trans person owned. And this one went for, like $29.90. But if you find a shirt, anything in that brand, that, to grab it, because it is known to be a gender neutral. Now this was listed as women's, but a lot of the cuts, it seems, are more gender neutral cuts.
Yeah, and it seems like this seller could have maybe added like non-binary or androgynous to the title.
Yep, definitely.
You can always /women/.
So this was not one on the list, but I happened to find this a Fiorella Mancini. It looks like it's an Italian brand, but I like how they put unisex in the title, and it is a very kind of gender fluid print. It's like I could totally see a man or a woman or somebody that identifies as neither or both wearing that. So
yeah, that is a really cool piece. I would die if I found that in the thrift store.
Telfar was another brand. This was one of the examples. This one went for $77, but that's another brand that is all androgynous, gender neutral. It's
interesting here, they actually didn't use any gender terms in the title at all.
Again, yeah, and I just searched for these brands because I was going through, some of the brands that I found, so I did a search for them. But if you didn't know the brands, and you were just a gender neutral person shopping and you didn't know to look for the brands, I might not have found them.
Yeah, so that would have been a good, put like men's, women's, androgynous or something.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely do that if you.
This is a short title, so they have room to.
They had a lot of room. Yeah. This one was another one, Telfar, and you can see they did put queer unisex, in there. So
I think queer is a fine keyword, especially around like Pride time when you're looking for, something to wear to Pride, and maybe search queer.
And this was the brand that was the I forget what it was, what did I say it was? The brand that had they sell them on Depop as well. So yeah.
All genders.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I also prefer language all genders instead of like both genders.
Okay. Yeah, because you don't identify. Yep.
Genders, yeah.
I understand. That's good point.
Very good point. And this was Tomboy X is one of the brands.
I do like them.
Yeah.
They're a little pricey.
I heard that they're not as trans inclusive as they like to say they are. So yeah, but they do have really good inclusive like styles and sizes.
Mm-hmm. And sizes was another thing they have. So I see there's a thing there that says binder giveaway. So that's another thing to look for as well, correct?
Yes. So it was one thing I mentioned on our last LGBT show. So binders are something that of course you wear binders. Mm-hmm. Non-binary people who want to like minimize their trust will wear. They're quite expensive and they're a huge accessibility item. So like young trans people who maybe don't have their own money or the parents won't buy them for them, or just people who don't have a ton of funds. I mean, anyone who wears like bras, that they're super expensive. So binders are similar in that. Mm-hmm. So, to have them secondhand in good condition is great, but also there are lots of places that will accept donations of them and give them away to people who need them for free. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a good thing to look out for.
Like that Depop seller was doing a giveaway.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and that's actually also a great idea because then you can give directly to your community without having to go through a nonprofit. But if you're
I think they also through that got a whole bunch of buyers from that community, They got a whole bunch of new buyers, so.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Ooh. So this is more of the Lagan look kind of style. And then another example of.
Oh, they're not on the big screen.
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
You just see my reactions.
So this was the Too Good. So
this is Too Good. That's another brand that, and you can see there's, there's two on the website. There's on the website the picture that they put in that article. There were two people that were very androgynous, and they were wearing, like one was wearing like a long, kind of almost like a Kurt tee, but it was, kind of gender fluid. And then somebody else, the other person had on, like more of like a suit, and it was very,
So you can style it. They show you can style it differently.
Exactly.
That would be a fun. I mean, if you want to take the time to do that for your own pieces in your shop to style it and show those photos.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, for something like this, that's $300. That would probably be worth your time.
Yep.
A less expensive item might not have the.
And that's a good price because those pieces were really expensive. Like when I was looking at the website, like some of them were like $600 and up. So
yeah, I mean, it looks like really nice fabric. Like just the linen fabric alone is materials are expensive.
Mm-hmm. And even Louis Vuitton has gender neutral bags, so that's just an example of a bag.
Prada, I think, did like a whole gender neutral or like non-gendered show.
MCM has some too. Like a lot of the very high-end brands have a lot of, and messenger bags, think fanny packs, backpacks, all of those are.
Yeah.
All genders like utility.
That is true.
Wales Bonner was another brand that you should, look out for. And again, you can see how expensive those were.
Yeah. That's secondhand. That's lots.
Yeah. There's another Wales Bonner that's a little more colorful that went for $175. And then Nico Panda was another one. This was a collaboration, but that you can see that's a long parka coat that went for $295. But that brand in general, they have a lot of hoodies and stuff like that, a lot of kind of leisure wear. Mm-hmm. And that is another brand that's also known for being kind of gender neutral. So and then I just wanted to show the flag, So if you find something with the flag on it, that's the
Yeah,
gender.
for sure.
also good that
Nice
to know
to see
there's-
a more masculine looking body wearing that.
It's probably
Definitely.
not a photo, but
I
don't know if that was
why
in-
you gotta
I'm
take that
sorry.
away.
but it is a good reminder that there are more pride flags than the rainbow flag, which is the most well-known one. So if you see something like this, like there are definitely people who are looking for those items.
Yeah, that was, and then older brother, that was one of the ones on the
Yeah.
list too. That's another one that's very, gender fluid and
I like it.
under $25 for that one. So
Oh yeah, it's interesting they use Garmentory in the keywords, which is a really fun website just to browse through because they have lots of small, more indie designers, and it's
good to know.
just if you're bored and you want some like fashion eye candy to browse their site because you can learn some like very high end names there that not as common to find, but you may not have heard of otherwise. So I always just like shopping there. Oh, and that's
that's everything then. So anybody has any questions? That was great. That was really great, Chris. I think.
Yeah, thank you. It was so nice to have you.
We're definitely going to have you on again now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you some questions about learning the ropes of reselling.
We have a couple questions about.
I think we might because we're already a little over an hour, but that'll be fun to kind of like.
Yeah, maybe we can do a separate show on that then, because we were going to ask a couple questions about it. So Chris is going to be helping Lola with her business this summer, and so
it'll be great because I definitely have trouble doing my photographs and stuff just because it's really physical. So I think that will be something that will be nice to have you around. And help.
So maybe we should do a part 2 just about that, about being
See what
a newbie thrifter and reseller and helping your spouse and sounds good.
So we do have our regular market report. Now you had some pretty good sales, and
so I did have a little bit of an accident with this. So I had 7 of them. Did thrift them for $1.99 a piece back in like before Christmas, and I kept getting likes and offers and this and that on them, but I hadn't sold them until now in the middle of July. I sold the Christmas plates. So reminder bundle and offered me $87 for the bundle of 7. And as I was packing them, me being the clumsy person that I am, I tripped and fell and happened to wedge myself into the corner of the chair and slam the plate against the chair, and it shattered. So I had to message her and say, sorry, I only have 6 now because I and so she said, okay, can we cancel? And then can you give me a discount? So I said, all right, how about 80 because I was already giving a good deal because, I have looked at and sets of 4 on eBay are priced at about 100. So she got a good deal to begin with. But I was like, all right, how about 80 for 6? And she said, fine. So I had to cancel it. And then now you can copy a listing, but I had to relist each one. I had to copy each listing. And then she had to make a new bundle. And so we got the $80 offer. And so they shipped out yesterday, and I did not break another one. Thank God.
And you are lucky though that she was happy to like cancel the original one and
she
the trouble of buying it again because she could have walked away at that point.
You're absolutely right. And for a while there, I thought she wasn't going to come through but then she came back and she was like, "Oh, sorry, I was away and from my computer or whatever." And so she did come back and bought it last night, and I shipped it out, and I made sure I packed them really well, and I didn't break any more. So that was a good deal. I paid about $12 for the 6 of them, and I sold for $80 plus shipping. So
not bad.
Yeah. And that was Kate Spade too. So, and then this was when we did our show last week, the blue box haul that we did. I had shown these from the shoe box. I got a box of 5 pairs, including the Rothy's that I showed for $39.98 with shipping. That included shipping. And I sold just this pair for $59.99 plus shipping. So that paid for the box, and I made a profit. And I still have 4 other pairs from that box to sell that will all sell for over $20 a piece. The Rothy's, hopefully about 100. So.
And you bought another box that looked amazing.
And I got some really good finds in there. I think one of them I'm gonna keep, and one of them I'm giving to my son if he likes them. But that gives me 3 pairs to make a profit on, and it looks like they're all gonna sell for a decent amount. So.
I'm so tempted to get one today.
Those shoe boxes have been great. Yeah. So, and then this was another one that I know, I think Jason helped me with at some point. This was, and this one was one I had listed for a long time. And I know that especially because of my photo, because that's on my old mannequin in my old house before I even had like, a male Manny or anything. And
you can see that like how it's indented in the chest, because that's because you turned it around.
Yeah, but that was my hollow one that I turned around. That was before I even had the dress form ones, the half Mannies. So this was like my old, I don't even have that one anymore. It broke and I threw it out like probably a couple years ago. So that's how old this listing was. So, but it did sell for, I paid $3.99, I think, because that's what the shirts, I know I got it at Goodwill in Philly, and I did sell it for $29.99 with free shipping. Now, was it a dud because I had it listed for so long? Kind of, but it sold, so still a great profit.
That's not a bad sale price, though. I wouldn't call that a dud, just like a...
No, it was just that I did have it listed forever, so...
Yeah.
But
I also sold a super old item, which you can tell because of my photo, and this was actually something that I had been meaning to rephotograph, and I kind of wish I had because I did take a best offer, so I sold it for $70 plus shipping. We went back and forth, and so she like basically it was like, well, she said I want to pay $70, but like I'm okay paying shipping. So then she added a few dollars to cover the shipping.
Okay. Wow, that was a good sale.
Yeah. It was a great sale, but I think if I had rephotographed this dress and put it on Etsy, I probably could have sold it for twice that.
Yeah.
Because it is just like beautiful. It was in pristine condition. It is that
I think he was referring to my shirt that he said wrinkled.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I was also going to
that's how the listing was, because now if I had listed that, I would have definitely steamed it and not had it. That's probably why it sat too long too. I probably should have. That's one of the ones I probably should have rephotoed.
Yeah. And so, but there's wrinkles on my background on this one too, which was one thing.
Okay, well, it could have been, yeah.
Yeah, so better lighting, better photos, and put it on a different platform. I probably could have gotten more, but I'm still super happy with that sale. I think I paid like $5 for this dress years ago, and I always had it in my closet because it was really, really small, never fit me. I generally with larger purchases in dresses, I always say like my rule of thumb is you sell it twice because people will return it if they're spending that much money.
It does fit. That is true for me too. It's been.
So I'm crossing my fingers that this isn't returned, but if it is, then I definitely will take the time to rephotograph it and sell it for more.
Chris, you'll learn about selling dresses.
I plan to sell it twice.
We have a great question from Paul asking about the side of the buttons. So men's and women's usually are opposite. I think that, but this is somewhat of a guess, that for like a gender neutral brand that's branding them that way, I think they're usually on the men's side, but it may also vary. So that actually could be a good thing to include in your listing if you just want to add that detail of what side the buttons are on.
Yeah, good point. Great question.
And then, so I my other sale was like a little unconventional, so I don't have a screenshot, but I've talked before about selling yarn on Ravelry. Ravelry is a website. It's a great resource if you sell yarn because it has like a database of every yarn ever made.
I love Ravelry.
It's a really, really great site, but you can also list your yarn to sell on, you can mark it as like available to sell. And so I did that for some of the yarn that I was just finally like, I need to pare down my collection. I have way too much. So I was able to sell directly to another user on Ravelry for not a huge sale, but it was yarn I thrifted, and they're using it to make hats for donation. So, and they were still happy to pay for it. So I sold 3 balls of acrylic yarn for $12 plus shipping.
Oh, that's good for acrylic. Yeah, that's not bad.
It was nice. It was special. It was a little it was like a thinner weight, so it's harder to find, good possible yarn in that weight. And she'd used it before and really liked it, so she was happy and I was happy, and it was just. And then we had like a nice conversation. She lives in Rhode Island, so we were trading information about yarn stores and stuff. So it was just like a great reminder that you can sell on all kinds of different platforms. And another additional bonus is there's no fees besides the PayPal fees. So she just paid.
Good point. Yeah, great.
And we have a quick breaking news.
Yeah, so a really quick stories. So the one is that Depop has recently announced that they are going to stop the sale of electronics on the website. So I think they're trying to gear more towards fashion now, which it is anyway. It's more of a fashion website, but they said it's Depop is a fashion marketplace to buy, sell, and discover unique fashion. They're really trying to push that. So we always reviewing categories outside of fashion, apparel, and accessories to determine if they remain a fit for the community. And therefore, now I have sold mugs and other little things, kind of trendy things, and that's still acceptable as of now. But they have, and they've listed which electronics can and can't be sold. So like they're looking at, computers, laptops, game consoles, speakers, mobile phones, stuff like that. But that's really not the audience that you have on Depop anyway. So it doesn't really, it's no game changer for me at least. But
yeah, it is really interesting to see because I joined Depop years ago and I wasn't super active. I wasn't selling really on Depop, but I would browse, and it did seem more like in the early days, they wanted to be more like Mercari, where it was like sort of anything goes, like you can sell anything, you can buy anything. And then the community was what sort of started going towards more the fashion and the like, especially like the more edgy, like vintage stuff. So I think it seems like they're almost following in like Etsy's kind of
evolving with the community.
Yeah, where it is like vintage and unique items, and then sort of the like vintage housewares, but not so much modern items as much anymore. So, I am glad they're still including cameras, because it's a great place to sell vintage cameras. There's a big following there.
Yeah, definitely. And the laptop and mobile phone cases. Yeah, and I can see, and the watches. That's all.
Which are
like
aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, like they mentioned Casio Swatch and Timex, which are all vintage brands. So yeah. So,
and then you also wanted to mention the Goodwill Blue Box updates, which are exciting.
Yeah, so Goodwill Blue Box is now, they've included Miami as another source for the boxes. So they're going to have, everything came from one location. Now they're going to be offering boxes from more locations, which is probably a good thing because it'll mean more boxes and more people. Because right now, 6 p.m. Friday, they are sold out. And they mentioned that they're going to be adding more locations down the road. So it looks like there's an increased demand for it, obviously, and they've realized that. So they're having, more locations sourced. So, and then also they are going to be dropping purses at 6 p.m. That's a new thing. So it's $20. It's one purse, but they have some good brands. It looks like you get a good designer purse, and I bet it's pretty good.
But it's mystery, right? Or is it
mystery? Yes, it's mystery purses. So
I might have to check our budget and see if I can splurge.
I know, I'm tempted, but I've bought so many boxes.
I know. I don't need anything, but
chances are too, I'd want to keep it for myself. So.
Yeah, there's that too. But also, like, I haven't gone thrifting since like February.
I know, I miss it too. I miss live, like in-person thrifting too. And it's not, things have opened here somewhat. I mean, stores are at like 50% capacity, or, so, but I don't feel safe enough right now because of my health.
Yeah, Massachusetts is doing really well and like keeping the new cases low, but it still just feels like a huge risk.
Yeah, I can't.
It's not necessary. It's just because I like buying used stuff. Like,
it's not like going to the grocery store.
I risk my life for it, but I miss it so much.
Me too.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. It's great to see everyone's questions, and
you can find us all over the web.
Yeah. Wait. So first we do have our normal.
Oh, our question. I forgot about it. Yes, I'm jumping the gun.
Little technical difficulties. So have you thrifted or sold gender neutral fashion items, or if you have any experiences with good keywords that worked out for you, or, you know, an item that had, you know, a story behind it of who bought it and why, maybe, you know, some experiences like that. We would love to hear it in the comments.
Absolutely.
And as always, as Nadine was saying, you can find us all over the internet.
And you can find Chris where Lola is. So
Yeah.
if you have any questions for Chris, if you have any questions directed, you know, for specifically for Chris, you know, email us, shoot a comment on the video, and Chris will be happy to answer as well. So
absolutely, yeah. So happy 4th of July weekend. I keep forgetting that's a thing. And
yeah, happy 4th of July, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.